Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So a little bit of an around the hobby kind of episode here. A couple of different things. I'm going to talk about a couple of different stories here, a little bit for each. And as usual, I will put the link in the description for you. As far as these are concerned, if you want to read up a little bit more on it, I'll read a little bit from some of these articles. All of these come from Sports Collectors Daily, but for the last one, I will have a little bit of fun and go into a couple of other websites as well. And I will include the links to those as I usually do, just so that you can check it out on your own. So the first one of these is going to be probably the one that was probably the most interesting this week. I didn't bother to make any kind of a breaking news thing as pertains to it, only because although it was something that certainly is very interesting and something that I'm going to be talking about more so down the road, and certainly during the live stream on Friday, one of the things that comes about as a result of this is that it's a step towards probably what a lot of things that eBay is going to do. So as pertaining to them opening up their vaulting service officially, we knew this was coming. It's something that had been kind of down the pipeline of their plans for quite some time. And I did a video probably some months ago where I talked about eBay basically telegraphing a lot of its moves over the next year or so. And the vault was always going to be part of that. And the eBay authentication program was a step towards what would become the vault, because the authentication program is a part of the vault. So when you submit something in there, the authentication program is going to be part of that. And that all makes perfect sense because it all kind of plays into this ecosystem they're trying to create for themselves. We haven't seen anything about the eBay wallet yet, but I'm sure that'll come about as a result of it as well. And there'll be probably some integration with the vaulting service. So the authentication, the vaulting service, and probably the wallet will all have several levels of integration. And they also alluded to some other different technology-based things that eBay is kicking around that they at least alluded to already that may be coming down the road. So that's a case where I wanted to kind of sit back, and I still want to do a little bit more digging into the vault itself, and I'm not going to go over all the different intricacies of it. What you need to know for now is that single graded trading cards valued at 750 or more can now be housed in it. There are going to be these little icons that pertain that show you when something is in the vaulting service, and there is a myriad of different fees and different things that are going to be associated to it because it is an eBay product. So nothing shocking. There's nothing there that should shock you as far as that's concerned. But one important thing that I will include is that I want to see how the fee structure develops. Because at first, several things are waived. There's going to be a lot of these little intricacies with it. I expect, honestly, that this fee structure is probably going to alter a couple of different times as they start getting feedback on it and start implementing it. Because some people are going to be happy with it and some people aren't. People always complain about fees, and that's normal, but they're going to have to adapt to try to make this something that people will want to adopt and use. Now, aside from that, I can definitely see a lot of use cases. From the seller's perspective, this is probably one of the few things that actually may be beneficial to a seller. And just long story short, you can imagine that if you have your cards inside of this vaulting system, the fee is getting pushed over to the buyer side of it, which obviously they won't like, but not unusual in the auction space if you think about some of the other auction houses. But another aspect of it, though, is from the seller's perspective. Imagine you submit your card, go through whatever process it has to go through, in this case, the authentication. You get it put inside of this platform. And again, one other thing we want to see is what this platform looks like. Can you see the cards? Do you have high-res scans? How easy is the management of whatever you happen to have in the vault? All these things we'll learn as time goes on here. But one of the other elements of it is once you've got your stuff in there and you create your auction or you buy it now or whatever the case is going to be, the sale is completed. If the buyer is also going to have it transferred within their own account, obviously eBay is going to make money on all these transfers. That's all going to be part of this model that they're going to try to make money on. But the aspect of it that is going to be interesting from the seller perspective is that if there's no shipping involved, at least not initially, even if the buyer down the road intends to consolidate and then send a shipment off from their vault, having vault to vault means that as far as that transaction is concerned, it's done. It's very similar to kind of a ComC model or one of the other vaults where, like, if you're able to do the transaction, you don't have to worry about the shipping anymore because you've already done the shipping in the first place to get it to the vault, and then it's just transferred from one account to the other, and then it's eBay's problem. And then any additional problems or things that the buyer has to do can now go through eBay because they already did an authentication process, and they did the vaulting service, and they transferred into the person's vault. So if an issue happens where it gets lost in the mail, headed back to the person after the fact, it's no longer the seller's problem because they've already offloaded it, and now it's all on eBay and the buyer themselves. Something like that could be very handy and very helpful because it eliminates a lot of the issues with folks that want to buy things to flip. So buying something, having it on the platform, and then maybe being able to flip it down the road, that does make that kind of thing easier. For the collector standpoint, the main angle I would look at is just the consolidation, possibly. And again, we'll have to see what that looks like. I have to see what kind of fees or what kind of charges they put as far as shipping things out. Because if there's an incentive to leave it in the vault for a little while, consolidate a variety of items, and then have it shipped as one package, similar to what I do with Ship My Cards today, that could be appealing, and it could possibly save you some money in individual shipping charges, and then maybe just put it all together in one single shipping charge. So that could be a possibility, but again, we'll have to see what that looks like. But for now, just some food for thought and things to consider. I'm not going to worry about much of the rest of this for now because obviously, as I said, a lot of this is going to change. But they do mention here, even in this article, once an item is in the eBay vault, instant sales become a reality with ownership transferring from the seller to buyer in a matter of seconds, and no need to re-authenticate the item or ship the item anywhere, which is kind of what I'm alluding to. eBay envisions fans and collectors buying and selling cards to popular players, watching games, or reacting to news involving a player, much like sites like ComC. Like I said, it's a very obvious comparison to make. So just something to consider. We'll see what this ends up going forward. We're in the middle. We were in the middle of starting the vaulting wars, so to speak. PWCC's got its. ComC has basically been a vault for a long time, and this is going to be eBay's foray into this, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. So that's the first story. Now let's touch on the second one here. I'll only touch on it for a couple minutes. The second one is Fanatics and Topps to launch a large-scale college trading card program. Long story short, this is a follow-up on the NIL and basically college branded sports cards. Great for the athletes who will be able to actually potentially make some money on their likeness, at least early on while they're in school. Some of them who may or may not go to the pros. That's kind of fun. It becomes another speculation category of people that really want to look at prospects. Now, one of the historic things, especially in football, has always been that there's a lot less interest in the college uniform cards. So basically, if the player is in their college uniform, there's a lot less interested versus the pro. There is certainly a contingent of fans that do enjoy their alma mater, for example, and they could be interested in something like that. So either way, it is interesting. We'll have to see what that looks like going forward as far as will there be enough interest in the products themselves? Can they make the products themselves interesting and compelling enough with the potential athletes they can bring under that umbrella with something like here, they mentioned under the Bowman U brand. Having something like that could potentially be very interesting. One of the comparisons brought up in a discussion separately was that it could almost be like your version of your Bowman firsts. But obviously in football and those other ones, we've never had anything like that, but it is a possibility. Baseball is different though, because the Bowman first and all that, the minor league stuff doesn't do as well, but Bowman first, you've still got what looks like major league uniforms, because even if you're a prospect, you might get call-ups and things like that. The difference between the NFL and college is very distinct. College just continues on until that player's done with it. Now, obviously, we've got these second-tier leagues out there where players, if they really wanted to, they could go to like an XFL potentially, or go to the new USFL, stuff like that, if they basically want to skip the college experience and maybe go that way. We haven't seen anybody actually try to do that successfully in this current iteration. But right now, this is kind of bridges the gap with the college sports into the professional sports, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to make a viable product or an interesting product that'll people will be drawn towards. Of course, there certainly will be, at least for the top tier folks, there will be at least some interest, because if they do become great players in the NFL, then there'll still be cards, like having on-card autographs of these guys early on. I could definitely see some appeal for that, but it's still kind of niche. It's kind of limited. Interesting, but not necessarily something that we'll have to look into. One other point here, they say the far-reaching deal will eventually include nearly 150 of the nation's top colleges, so a very large potential player base, and over 200 male and female student athletes across multiple sports. So if you're into your alma mater in that case, this could certainly be appealing. There could be some interest in this kind of thing, being able to see your players in their various college uniforms, including the top schools. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Again, link in the description if you're interested in reading up some more about it, and I'll leave it at that. Last one here. Beckett hires new CEO with plans for expansion beyond cars. Now, this one's interesting. I want to spend a couple of minutes on this one here at the end. This one is that they've hired a gentleman named Kunal Chopra to the role of CEO on Monday. Most recently, he served as CEO of Caspian, a software and tech-enabled services platform for retail marketplaces. Now, a lot of the emphasis is on this technology side of things. So this was a little bit more interesting. I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from this article, and I want you to think about some of this stuff. We're excited that he agreed to take the helm at Beckett. The collectibles industry is embracing technology in an unprecedented way. I agree. And that's why we thought Kunal was perfectly positioned to lead Beckett, as it invests heavily in digital products and services for collectors. Keep that in mind in a second. One interesting thing here is he says that he sees Beckett as a one-stop shop platform of amazing products and services for collectors and manage their portfolio of alternative investments. Now remember, this is the CEO of Beckett, alternative investments. This includes refining our core offerings, pricing, grading, and authentication services, but also expanding to newer services and categories beyond trading cards and comic books. We intend to do so by innovating on behalf of our customers and utilizing cutting-edge technology in Web3 and blockchain, data analytics, artificial intelligence and automation. There's a lot to digest there. I want you to kind of consider that and think about it. He's not really a card guy. He's a technology guy. And certainly a smart guy, but how that's going to translate into kind of the Beckett brand. And there is a little background that I want to give you on the Beckett brand as well. That is, I think, will kind of give you a little bit of thought as to how this individual here could be seen as someone to lead up that segment. But we'll talk about that more in a second. So he does include a little information on his background here. So if you're interested, like I said, I will include the link to it so you can check it out. Prior to that, he was a general manager at Microsoft, a general manager at Amazon and fashion, a director of product at Groupon. So he's got an extensive background with a variety of different technology companies and working in those different categories, and came as an MBA from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. So he certainly has the credentials in business, but it's going to be very interesting to see what it looks like. So going forward, what attracted you to a particular role? Industry has seen tremendous growth over the last few years and is projected to grow globally in a big way over the next few years. At the same time, there's a thirst for alternative investments, again, that phrasing, and the rise of digital-first consumer, keep that in mind. There's a huge market opportunity in front of us with a changing demographic and more digital demographic. You'll notice where the emphasis is coming up in these responses. Then there are the digital collectibles and asset-based NFTs. But at the same time, technology hasn't kept pace with what consumers want. So there's a lot of opportunity for a company like Beckett, with an iconic brand in the space, to serve that customer. I'll leave the rest of this for you to look into and kind of scan through, but I think you get the gist that there is very much an emphasis on that alternative investment and technology-based segment of it, emphasizing Web3, emphasizing blockchain, emphasizing a lot of the technology side of things. Could be a complete shift in direction of where Beckett decides to go with this. So it could become a lot less of what have been historically their bread and butter as far as publications and a lot of the different guides and things. Obviously, nobody really uses their price guides anymore. It's not really seen in that same category, but it'll be interesting to see what, if any, shifts happen as a result of this mindset shift, and what the future plans of Beckett look for with a different CEO who's going to have a completely different type of vision. Something to keep in mind. Now, like I said, I'll include links to this if you want to check it out, so you can certainly do that. But I wanted to bring to your attention a couple of things. Now, in reality, for those of you who may not be familiar or paid too much attention to Beckett over the last several years, Beckett originally, as owned by Dr. Beckett, was sold off years and years and years ago to a different media company. But since then, they were sold to a different company, and I'll give you a little background on it. So the company is actually known as Global Growth. So this is actually their link to it. And you can actually see, and I'll include a link to this for you so you can check it out. And Global Growth is interesting because they're actually a very large company that owns a variety of other kinds of companies, actually over 100 different companies. So Beckett is a very, very small sliver of a large overall portfolio. So this kind of plays into thinking about this. In reality, Beckett is virtually a division inside of a much larger company. And they talk about their portfolio. They include healthcare, research into increasing healthy lifespans, a lot of this. Now, they do make emphasis and mention in these growth markets here, they talk about these different things: communication technology and services, healthcare technology, information services and technology companies, AR management group, one of their segments, but right here, collectibles and gaming, technology, products and services. That's where Beckett comes into play. Looking at comic books, coins, sports cards, all kinds of those things. So it is part of their overall portfolio, but just understand, you got this larger company that owns Beckett as part of an overarching portfolio. It is also kind of a fascinating company because this Global Growth company wasn't originally known as Global Growth. Global Growth was actually known by a different name previously. So actually, let me shift over to this one. So this gentleman here, Greg Lindberg, is going to be the one that I'm going to talk to you about for a moment. It's kind of funny because he created a company that would become Eli Global, and Eli Global is what's known as Global Growth right now. And if you check out the site, you can have a lot of fun with this, just scanning through. It's kind of fascinating if you really think about this one. But part of the Global Growth here, there's an article that I'm going to include a link to it for you. So like I said, Global Growth was originally owned by that gentleman, Greg Lindberg, and he turned it into Eli Global, and now it's become Global Growth. Now, why has it changed? Obviously, in addition to rebranding, it's kind of an interesting little situation where Greg Lindberg has himself in kind of an interesting situation here that's outlined here. And this is on their website, by the way. Overcoming Adversity, an update on our founder. Our founder, Greg Lindberg, will be reporting to a minimum security federal prison camp on October 20th, 2020. We continue to be confident that his appeal will prevail. Please see further information here. One of Greg's most important operating principles is first who, then what, such as Global Growth has built a strong team capable of managing the business without Greg's presence, which they kind of have to do because Greg has actually been found, he was convicted of bribery and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He is currently serving a 7 years and 3 months sentence in federal prison. So that is the person who founded the company that now owns Beckett. So it was purchased under his stewardship, though. It's kind of a little bit of a funny thing. Oh, by the way, you can check out Greg's new book, Failing Early and Failing Often: How to Turn Your Adversity into Advantage. So an interesting little twist on the story. I wanted to bring it to your attention, not for any particular agenda, but I just thought it was very amusing that a lot of the fun I have on the channel, and those of you who watch the channel regularly know that in the live stream we have a lot of fun with Beckett. We focus most of our attention on Beckett grading specifically, and Eric, who's on there regularly with us on the live stream, likes to have a little bit of fun at Beckett's expense because, you know, he's very disappointed in what they've done as a company over the years. But at this point, they're on their third ownership. Again, Dr. Beckett sold to a media company who then in turn sold to, Eli Capital, which is now Global Growth. So it's part of over 100 different properties that they own, different companies. Beckett is literally one small sliver of an overall huge pie in this company's thing. And the founder is currently in jail, which is kind of fun, kind of interesting. Hashtag on brand. Now, mind you, in fairness, actually maybe completely off brand because most of the folks in the card space who do weird and shady things are not in jail. So he's kind of unique in that sense, I suppose. But for stuff unrelated to the Beckett side of things, just for a completely different set of things, that was kind of interesting. The point, though, is it is a very small piece of a very large pie. The whole consolidation phase that has been going on a lot in the hobby, Beckett was under that years and years ago. And it'll be interesting to see where that looks like going forward. So when I go back to this new CEO here, in reality, like I said, I gave you that little background on the founder kind of for fun because I just thought it was interesting. But the new CEO here really has nothing to do with him because obviously he's already in jail. So he's doing his thing. The founder is doing his thing over there. But they're trying to go in a different direction. Not surprisingly, because at the end of the day, Beckett is a division inside of this very large company. And as such, the goal really is profitability and trying to figure it out. And they've lost a lot of ground. What I'm curious about is what that's going to look like as pertains to, like I said, the media arm, which loses relevance every single day that goes by. But even the third-party grading segment of it, they still exist. They're still there. Does the roadmap include enhancing and improving what they have left there? Does it include enhancing and improving their database, which still exists, but it's certainly not robust? It really needs to be rebuilt and refined. Is that going to be a priority when, a lot of the emphasis, even in this article here talking about it, a lot of the emphasis is Web3 and blockchain, data analytics, artificial intelligence, and automation. Doesn't mean it excludes fixing some of those things we're talking about. It could be used, technology could be used to try to help those out. But it'll be curious to see where Mr. Chopra decides to go in terms of focusing whatever budget he has to run that segment of the company. Because again, at the end of the day, it's a division of an overall larger pie that I gave you with that global growth company. Just some things to think about and some things that I thought about is kind of doing this around the hobby thing. Hopefully, maybe it was illuminating to you. Maybe you weren't aware of that, so it's kind of fun. And again, it's kind of a fun story. I'll include the links to those other things for you if you got some time to kill and you want to check it out yourself and see what the heck is this guy up to and what happened there. Otherwise, though, more videos coming up on the channel. Live stream will be happening on Friday. We're going to do it 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And then we'll chat about a couple of other things. We'll chat a little bit about PSA doing its price adjustment. They did do an adjustment after my initial video where it is available to Collectors Club members as well as to the bulk graders. And it's at a $4.99 price point, which is higher than the $2.99 that was reported initially that they had out there. So that's good. We can talk about that a little bit as well or anything else that you guys want to chat about. So that'll be it for now. Thanks very much. We'll catch you in the next one.